Hey, what's up? Welcome to Kriscoart. My name is Chris Chirini, and today I want to explore with you how we can create an entire short film, a narrative work, just from stock footage. So I hope you've been enjoying the recent projects. Definitely subscribe and hit the bell to not miss any future filmmaking videos. This video is sponsored by Shutterstock. They actually reached out to me to collaborate and come up with an idea and make a video together. And I got super excited just because every time I look for stock footage, Shutterstock is usually the company that has it. And so I knew that if I was gonna create a short film, not just, supplementary clips for a project, but an entire project, 100% start to finish stock footage, I knew that Shutterstock would be the place to do it. So I accepted the offer and the challenge and got to work. I ended up really having a playground for experimentation, trying things out. So I want to share some of the things that I learned with you in this video. So later on, we're going to be talking about things like pacing and essentially just making two random clips work together. So how do you build those building blocks, that structure, and those relationships in between those different connecting points in order to make a cohesive sequence. So we're gonna explore that and more, but before I get ahead of myself, here is the short film that we're gonna be talking about in this video. Enjoy. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. It was fun to make. It was definitely scary at first. So I don't want to get too into the meaning and just break down the video in that way because I kind of think that, I don't know, I don't like that. But to kind of speak in broad terms, this is a story about humanity, the good and the bad. So within that kind of general concept, I kind of started to plug in what aspects did I want to showcase in terms of visuals, in terms of emotion. This followed almost exactly the same process of making any other project. It's just the order of things were quite different, of course. For example, in a regular short film, you make a storyboard or any sort of pre-planning ideas that can be your overall plan to go and shoot and capture all the pieces that you need to tell your story. And then those pieces that already have a planned relationship are brought closer to that relationship in the edit and with other choices like music and sound design and all the rest of the stuff. What's different here is that with stock footage, the order has been just switched around, and you are planning for a certain sequence and you're hunting for the right elements that could find their way into your overall plan. And the principles to make them work are the same. Okay, so where do we start? Let's start to get really practical. I know it can be pretty daunting when you just have a blank timeline and you're like, all right, time to make something. And having access to pretty much any possible clip that you can think of, sometimes when you are creatively trying to jumpstart this process, it can be very overwhelming. For example, I've said many times that just jotting things on paper helps me to get through that first stage. And even recently in the last video that I posted, I used physical objects to sort of jumpstart that creative process so that I could have a starting plate from which I could build on and try different ideas. So whichever way you want to sort of kindle that spark of creativity that can then launch you into the project, it's really up to you. It takes experimentation. For me, it was starting with a very specific theme and feeling that I was trying to get, while still keeping things loose enough so that I could find different options and different pieces that could work together and not be stuck to a storyline that required very, very specific elements within the videos. From there, the way I was selecting the moments, the way I was like filtering out these different choices that I mentioned is simply by how they felt within the context of the timeline. So sometimes I would download different versions of a certain scene. After that, I would consider how good does the clip look? Does it feel cinematic? I just really wanted to see how the clip was shot and how did it feel. And fortunately, most of the clips pretty much had that inherently, and you are very quick to find shots that feel very high end and that feel like they could really belong in a movie. Now, another thing that I'm looking for when I'm looking for these clips are patterns. Keep those things in mind in terms of the blocking of the characters in this clip, or how it's shot, or where things are placed in frame. So based on those sort of initial criteria, I was scanning through footage and clips, some that I was, and again, like I said, interlocking to my plan, and some that even generated new ideas for the story as I was stumbling upon new scenes and new elements that I wasn't even thinking of. Now, since this was all an experiment anyways, I really wanted to sort of carry that mindset over to the editing and keep it fun, just experiment, try different things. And so sometimes I would be playful, go with the music. And sometimes instead of the music driving the cuts, it would drive more the emotion of the scene. I did this for music and many other things, but it was just nice to kind of like section off pieces of this sort of puzzle and just play with it. Which, by the way, the classical composition that you heard in the short film and all the music in this episode is through Shutterstock. But particularly the track that I used for the short, it is essentially inspired by the flow of a river. And so this sort of evolution, this travel, the path that sort of a river almost needs to carve for itself, and the idea that water will find its flow, it will find its way, that also kind of helped inspire the story that I wanted to tell on the humanity side. And a great tool to bring those pieces together even more, to sort of add a top layer, are overlays. And these are useful in so many different ways, but for this, it's a very effective way to create a link between two moments and two different clips. And the ones that I'm using are from my pack. It's super simple. All you have to do is set them to screen and you're good to go once they're in your timeline. This is honestly a pack that I use all the time, and it was really handy to have, especially in this project when you're trying to make everything flow together as seamlessly and smooth as possible. And as an editor, as a VFX artist, I've made sure to make this pack exactly what you need. So everything is labeled, there's a ton of stuff. And these elements not only help to kind of bring it all together, but also to kind of add that added level of interest, that certain added flair to it. Buying this pack is a great way to support the channel, and I'm linking it in the description, as well as the link to Shutterstock, since it is an affiliate link and I get a small commission at no extra charge to you. Now, another big thing to make all of this work is the sound design. This is the final sort of glue, the final layer that just kind of amalgamates everything together, and that can again be used as a storytelling tool. So keep all the things that we discussed for the visual side in mind for the sound. Now, we've talked about sound design a lot, and I actually have a lot of videos on this, interviewing people about this, so we've covered it from many different angles, and I'm gonna make a playlist just for sound because I think it's important. I'm also gonna include videos from other people, so it's just gonna be a good resource if you're trying to get into sound, sound design, all that stuff. But just a quick run through, I'm gonna play a little bit of it so you can just hear the sounds. Usually, if you're trying to create the sound space of a scene, you want to be very layered and very detailed. Of course, that doesn't mean overwhelm the music track with a bunch of stuff. So for example, in this kind of digital world scene, a lot of these sounds are pages being flipped really quickly, paper materials, sort of stuff that's familiar with us in terms of things quickly going by. Maybe that's the flipping of the pages. And pages were also being used in the very beginning with the flowers. So I would just then flick really close to the microphone, one page at a time, to sort of get the sounds of these petals opening. So in a way, it was nice to kind of introduce some sound ideas that are repetitive in ways that are not so obvious when you're seeing it with a different visual. And again, this is where making it fun comes in. If you're doing the sound design and you just want to have a good time with it, experiment and be curious. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks again to Shutterstock for sponsoring the video and for making it happen. Also, big announcement, this is one of my favorite projects coming out. We're gonna have an episode coming up with a full breakdown of a music video start to finish, from lighting to editing to planning to getting the locations. Definitely subscribe and hit the notification bell to not miss that, because it's gonna be a really, really interesting episode. And honestly, it's something that I'm really, really proud of and really care about. So I would really appreciate it if you go and check it out when it's up. We've also started releasing a new series on set, which is an even more extended and detailed look into the sets that we have when we film, when we do projects. So that's going to be a new series with new episodes for every project that we make. And the idea is to try to get you guys as close to what my experience is as a filmmaker and trying to do these projects, so you can see the good and the bad, and we can all learn and grow from these experiences. So subscribe and hit the bell to not miss on all of that coming up. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a like and share it with your friend. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Chris Trini, and I'll see you next time.